thank you for the invitation to speak at the 3rd Annual Kiev Jewish Forum. As many of you know, ADL is the oldest anti-hate organization in the world. We have been a leader in the fight against anti-Semitism for more than a century. And today, one of our top priorities is the most modern expression of anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitism and hate that manifests online. For ADL, the online spread of conspiracy theories and hate, often leading to on-the-ground violence, has been shocking but not altogether surprising. We're seeing what once was fringe, extremist, and bigoted narratives become normalized, moving from the margins into the mainstream. In large part, that's because of social media's toxic business model that favors growth and engagement over morality and safety. No industry in the history of capitalism has ever exercised the power that these social media platforms command in terms of controlling the way the world communicates. Social media's amplification of extremism, disinformation, and conspiracy theories, and the complete and utter lack of transparency and accountability around how that amplification takes place poses, I would argue, one of the greatest threats to the safety of vulnerable individuals and marginalized communities worldwide, including the Jewish people. The recent Facebook whistleblower, Frances Haugen, recently testified before the US Congress and indeed before the European Commission in Brussels that an estimated 87% of Facebook's spending to address information was on English language content. Think about that. Nearly 90% was spent on English language content, despite the fact that English speakers are less than 10% of their users at Facebook. So ADL is looking around the world at this problem. We recently identified 39 separate Arabic language Facebook groups or pages with hundreds of thousands of followers that had titles that specifically were aimed at promoting the protocols of the elders of Zion. In another recent ADL study, we found 25 Spanish language anti-Semitic posts on Facebook that were from groups with a total of more than 660,000 followers and viewed well over 55,000 times. Anti-Semitic content seems to be given even more of a free pass when it comes from foreign leaders and refers to Israel or Zionists. Twitter shockingly still gives a platform to the major media outlets of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They use their accounts to glorify terrorism, to lift up martyrdom, and to spread absolutely horrendous anti-Semitic hate and conspiracy theories. Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei, the head of the #1 state sponsor of terror on earth, has well over a dozen current accounts on Twitter that he uses to not only promote Hezbollah and Hamas, but where he routinely espouses genocidal language directed at the Jewish state and the Jewish people. We need to finally hold big tech accountable for their role in fracturing democracy and inciting violence against Jews and other minorities. So I want to give you an overview of what ADL is doing to make that happen. ADL's Center on Extremism, for decades and decades, has been studying the way extremists across the ideological spectrum exploit the online ecosystem to spread their messages, recruit adherents, finance hate, and commit acts of terror. Our Center for Technology and Society, a unit established by ADL in 2017 and based in Silicon Valley, has deep product and policy expertise. Its staff was recruited out of companies like Reddit, Twitter, and Yahoo. Its leadership has a background in computer science and software engineering. And we regularly generate research and advocacy-focused solutions that can make digital spaces and social media safer and more equitable. Our Center for Technology and Society recommends policy and product interventions to elected officials and directly to the technology companies. We drive advocacy efforts to hold the platforms accountable and push hate back to the periphery of society where it belongs. We produce data-driven applied research through our network of fellows and analysts. We bring to market technical tools and products designed by our engineers, using their capabilities in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing in order to meet the need for crucial independent data measurement and analysis that allows us to track hate online, just as ADL has been tracking hate offline for decades. And finally, we empower the targets of harassment. We work directly with the victims to enable them to more effectively respond to online incidents and push the platforms to create safer online spaces for all. One area where ADL has taken the lead is online gaming. The world of online gaming is much bigger than people imagine. As an industry, its revenues are larger than the movie business and the music business combined. ADL recently studied just one subset of games, online multiplayer games, which are today played by almost 100 million Americans and 23 million teenagers between the ages of 13 and 17 years old. Alarmingly, 10% of teen gamers have witnessed discussions about white supremacist ideology in online multiplayer games. Our survey also found that 7% of adult gamers have come across Holocaust denial in discussions while they're playing games. Today, ADL is working with the leading gaming companies, from Microsoft to Electronic Arts to numerous others. Our most recent contribution to the fight against online hate addresses the fact that manipulative design features are one significant way that platforms take advantage of consumers. So last month, ADL introduced our social pattern library, a collection of design principles and user experience patterns intended to reduce hateful content on social media platforms. We've made this library available for free. It can be accessed from our website, adl.org. But it was developed in collaboration with leading user experience designers. We believe platforms should adopt these recommendations if they really do want to break the cycle in which hateful content is amplified through algorithms or similar features. Today, most social media companies engage in content moderation to enforce their policies using both artificial intelligence and human interventions. This year, ADL developed a report card on Holocaust denialism and anti-Semitic content to assess and evaluate the efficacy of these reporting systems. It might not surprise you, none of the platforms got good grades, and some were actually quite poor. Well, we recently did a study and found that nearly 80% of Americans think new laws are needed to hold the social media companies accountable for recommending that users join extremist groups. ADL's developed a strategy that we call the Repair Plan that lays out an integrated agenda, a whole of society strategy to fight online hate and push violence and extremism back into the fringes of the digital world. There are several major components to our repair plan. Number one, regulation and reform that focuses on anti-discrimination measures, increased transparency, and other means of assuring accountability. Number two, enforcement at scale of content moderation. Number three, putting people over profit, which means platforms need to adjust their algorithms and stop recommending or amplifying organizations or content associated with extremism, disinformation, and hate, even if it results in less engagement and less profits. Number four, access to justice, which means changing the laws and the policies and the practices that deny victims meaningful access to the courts. When tech platforms allow perpetrators to abuse their targets, victims often have no place to go in the face of physical threats or emotional injury, let alone financial or reputational harm. Victims and targets have been denied due process because our cyber harassment laws are outdated or don't even exist. That must change. Number five, interrupting disinformation. While we need to end algorithmic amplification of hate, we also need more widespread media literacy and anti-disinformation education for all users at all ages. And then finally, research and innovation is crucial. There must be technology research and innovation aimed at fighting online hate. Just as privacy by design has been promoted with notable success, we think it's time for anti-hate by design to be promoted and widely incorporated into social media platforms. Thank you to everyone watching today for doing your part to address anti-Semitism and hate, both online and on the ground in your communities. and we look forward to working with you and supporting you and all the Jewish people in 2022 and beyond.